Welcome. In this video, we're going to explain the basics of how your DNA works and what processes go wrong in FacioScapuloHumeral Muscular Dystrophy, or FSHD. Don't worry, I promise to keep it simple, fun, and interesting along the way. By the end, you'll have a clearer picture of what's happening inside muscle cells affected by FSHD, why it leads to symptoms, and how this knowledge guides researchers toward new treatments. Let's start with the basics. Molecular Biology 101. Every cell in your body needs instructions to know what to do. Those instructions live in your DNA. Inside each cell, that information is read, copied into a molecule called RNA, and then used to build the proteins that make your body work. Here's a helpful way to understand this. Think of your genome, which is all of your DNA, as a giant library packed with books. That library holds every recipe needed to build and run your body. And there's a copy of that library inside almost every cell in your body. Inside the books are billions of words, your DNA. Sections of DNA contain specific genes. You can think of a gene like a recipe. It gives instructions for how to make something. When you need a recipe, you can't just rip the recipe page right out of the library book. Instead, you make a copy. That process is called transcription, and the copy is called RNA. Next, you take that copy home to your kitchen and you use the RNA recipe to assemble ingredients step by step. For example, to bake cookies. That process is called translation, and the finished product is a protein. Proteins do nearly everything in your body. They act as enzymes that speed up chemical reactions. They carry oxygen in your blood. They fight infections and even send signals between different tissues. Proteins carry out almost all the important jobs that keep your cells and you alive and healthy. So, if we follow the chain, DNA to RNA to protein, or library to recipe card to cookies, we see molecular biology in action. Now, I realize most of us haven't copied recipes out of a library book in many years. These days, we'd do a Google search or we'd ask an AI for instructions. But stick with me. This is still one of the best ways to really picture what's happening inside your cells. There's one more layer I want to talk about, the epigenome. Think of it like the library's security system, locks, guards, and checkout rules. The epigenome controls which books can be opened and when. This is how your body makes sure the right genes are used at the right time and in the right cells. Most of the time, this whole system works beautifully. Cells bake exactly the cookies they need to stay healthy. Now, let's talk about what happens in FSHD. Normally, the epigenome, that security system, keeps certain parts of your DNA tightly closed. One of those areas is on a small section of chromosome 4. This is where a repetitive stretch of DNA lives, called D4Z4 repeats. The D4Z4 DNA can be repeated up to 150 times. This is also where a gene called DUX4 lives. In most people, after a certain point in development, this section of DNA is tightly closed and it's not accessible. Think of this like the security system working properly. Guards are in place and locks are on the doors and on the bookshelves. However, in a person with FSHD, this part of the chromosome 4 security system is weakened. In FSHD1, the most common type of FSHD, the stretch of D4Z4 repeats is shortened to 10 or less repeats. Shortening these repeats is like removing locks. making it easier to get books that are not supposed to be available. In FSHD2, which is more rare, other mutations in your DNA mess up the security guards and their patrol routes, making it easier to sneak into an area of the library that isn't supposed to be open. Either way, the result is the same. A dangerous cookbook gets pulled off the shelf and a forbidden recipe slips out. And instead of making a delicious, useful cookie, your cells bake a poison cookie. That poison cookie is the DUX4 protein. DUX4 is toxic to muscle cells. It causes them to die. When this occurs, your immune system senses the damage and triggers inflammation, which is the body's natural repair response. However, DUX4 can also contribute to inflammation. And when inflammation is repeatedly triggered, it can cause damage instead of healing. Over time, this harmful cycle of muscle cell death and inflammation leads to muscle weakness, chronic pain, and other symptoms of FSHD. The good news is that because researchers understand how this recipe chain works, there are many possible ways to stop the poison DUX4 cookies from being made or to block their effects on muscle cells. That's why there's so much active research and real hope for new treatments in FSHD.